Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life. Thanks for stopping by today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about English paper piecing, specifically how I English paper piece the flowers for my grandmother's flower garden quilt. Now if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can see all of my updated video tutorials, and also hit the like button if you like what you see. And as always, you can ask a comment or a question, leave a comment or a question on the channel or the blog. Okay, so today we're going to talk about all things English paper piecing and hexagons. I love making these English paper pieced grandmother's flower garden blocks, and I make them all the time. It's a great project that you can take along with you anywhere. So let me show you what you will need. I like to use pre-cut hexagon papers. These have 1-inch sides, and you can buy them in packages from paperpieces.com. You can even find places online where you can print them out yourself and cut them out of paper, but these are just so handy, and you can reuse them. You'll also need fabric scraps. I actually really like to cut my fabric scraps just about 3/8 of an inch larger all around than my paper piece. And it doesn't have to be exact like these are. You can just lop them off with your scissors, or you can actually sometimes find templates. I found this mini hexagon by Easy Quilting that is just the right size to use with these. And I also used a go cutter before to cut my fabric scraps. So what you're going to do, and I don't use the glue method at all because I don't want those extra glues in my fabric, but you're basically just going to center your paper piece on your scrap of fabric, and you're going to fold one edge down as close as you and as tight as you can to the paper. And then you're going to fold the next edge down in the same manner. You don't have to worry about any measurement or anything. Just make sure that you have a nice crisp edge on the other side. Then you're going to take a needle and thread, and I've already knotted the end of my thread. And you're going to just take a stitch in the back of that hexagon from the one fold to the other fold. And I actually back it up twice. So I've just got a good stable section there. The next thing I'm going to do is continue around the edge of the paper piece, and I'm going to fold another fabric edge. So I have two of my corners are folded, and I'm just going to take a stitch. So you can see that I've got this fabric, this thread coming along the back of the fabric. I'm not going through the paper piece, I'm just catching the fabric on the bottom and the fabric on the top. I'm going to continue around. I'm just going to catch that fabric. And so you can see that my thread is continuing around. I'm just going to keep going. Until I've gone all the way around the hexagon. I'm going to go back to the first one that I did, right next to it, and I'm going to do a double stitch on this one too. It doesn't have to be exactly tight because I'm going to press them after I'm done. But I do like to take those double stitches when I start and end. Once I've finished, I will cut the thread, and I'll start working on another one. Now, to make the flower, I always start with sewing a hexagon to the center hexagon. And then I sew all the other hexagons to that center hexagon, and then at the end I go and stitch them together. Now let me show you how I do that. I'm going to take We'll just pretend that we're going to use this yellow as the center hexagon, and we're going to sew the blue one to it. So we're going to put them right sides together, line up those corners as well as we can. And this is just a little bit different. It's called a simple whip stitch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up on the wrong side of the bottom hexagon and bring my needle through the top one. And I'm just going through the fabric. I'm not catching the papers. If you sew right on the edge, you can catch the fabric without catching the paper. And this doesn't have to be any type of special stitch, just the simple whip stitch, catching the edge of the fabric as you go. You can put a lot of them close together, but they don't have to be super close together. You're going to have so many stitches here that it's going to hold together just fine. Now what you can do when you get to the end is you can continue sewing another hexagon to that center hexagon, and let me show you how I do that. So we've got these two sewn together. Now if the next one I want to add is this blue one, I can put it face down. This one I've already taken the paper out of, and that's one thing I should know, is that I usually keep all the papers in while I'm sewing them all together until I'm ready to put them onto a quilt. It just keeps it a little bit more stable. But just for example's sake, I'm going to sew this one on next. So I'm just going to continue whip stitching. All the way around. Okay, I now have 2 petals added to my center hexagon. I'm going to take and add the rest of them on to the center hexagon, and then I will come back and show you the final step. Okay, so I've finished sewing all of the rest of the hexagon petals around the edges of the flower, and I'm now going to show you how to finish up your flower piece. I've sewn 2 of them together just to give you an idea of what it looks like on the back, but it's the same method that we've used before. We're going to take 2 petals, we're going to put them right sides together, line up the edges, and we're going to use that same whip stitch to sew them together. And we're going to do this to in between all of the petals that have already been connected to the center. We'll whip this one together, and then I'm just going to show you one more thing that you'll need to do when you're finished. Okay, so I've got 2 of them sewn on, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to keep going around and sewing the rest of them together. And sometimes what I want to show you, what you can do is you can travel your thread along the back so that you don't have to cut your thread, tie a knot, and you can just travel it along the back until you're ready to sew the next one. And I do that a lot to save thread and to save time. Now, when you're finished, you're going to have a block that looks like this. You're going to have all your papers in, and you can easily remove the papers at this point just by kind of bending the paper and pulling it out. So they come right out, they can be reused. Sometimes I will iron them after I've taken them out just to get the wrinkles out. I do leave these outer papers in until I'm ready to sew it onto the background fabric. It just really helps. As you saw with this one, it's just a lot more flimsy when it doesn't have the paper in. So keep your papers in, and you can take those centers out as soon as you have a completed flower to reuse those. And you're just really going to love this. It's a great technique. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about the English paper piecing method of making these blocks. I just absolutely love it. This quilt is my Flowers for Emma pattern. It's available in paper and PDF in my Etsy shop. And so if you want to make this style of flower garden quilt, you can do that for sure. The technique that I showed you also works for all of the other English paper piecing shapes. So you can refer to the tutorial no matter what type of shape you're doing. If you've watched this on YouTube, thanks so much, and you can subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you've appreciated these tips. You can also leave comments on the channel or on the blog, and thanks so much for stopping by.